Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets prepare for a revenge game opportunity at the Barclays against the Celtics. But what can we take away from that 107-105 victory on the road in New Orleans? We dive into it all coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here, Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms and let you know that you can start all season long, every single season, with big wins and returns on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And where we get started, Doug, there's a little tap back to that time just 36 hours ago when the Brooklyn Nets were coming off of a late game comeback victory over the Pelicans that continues to kind of build on what have been themes for this coaching staff and for this roster this year.
Yeah, 5-6, 107-105 victory. They had to take over the fourth quarter at some stretch to just make up the difference going down like late in the game. But overall, we said multiple times this season, I think we're going to say it for as long, for a while now, is the team just has so much fight in them. I know the Pelicans were undermanned, no Zion, no DeJounte Murray, right? No CJ McCollum. But this is not a team that's like the way, Herb Jones. This is not the way the Pelicans for sure drew it up in the preseason. But the Nets are also a team that was supposed to win 17 games, 18 games. And so they're already almost a third of the way there right now at 5-6, which is just nuts through 11 games. And I think we're just going to continue to see this. They're still mixing and match lineups, right? We get a Zaire Williams start over DFS, who's injured. And they just have fight in them, and you just can't take them lightly, sort of no matter what team, whether it's taking Cleveland down to the wire, whether it's taking Boston to OT, right? Or it's like this game, just beating a banged up Pelicans team. You just can't, you can't mail it in against the Nets team. And I think from our fans' perspective, just guys who watch the game every single night, that is like just all you can ask for, I think, really. And it's been a fun season so far. I think the Pelicans game was a good example of it.
Yeah, and listen, we said this before. We'll probably say it a few more times. It's enjoy the games, enjoy the victories.
Totally.
There's the macro of what we want to accomplish. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the organization does with the veterans and how they navigate being 5-6 through 11 games. I will say, every game that they play competitive in, and every game where they steal a win here and there, you do go, okay, we're 10%, 12% through the season. What is the ultimate agenda going to be here? But on a night-to-night basis, as we said it before as well, it's just easy to root for them. And as it gets down late game sequences and the Nets are within 5-6 points, I have yet to find myself go, oh boy, I hope they miss this shot. It's always, there you go. Nice up and in from, Cam Johnson, who gets the layup late in this one, the three-pointer from Cam Thomas, like everything that happens over the course of these games, unlike a year ago, where you're almost like, honestly, do you even deserve to win these games? Every single game this season. All right, coming back in here. Sometimes technical problems. That's the way podcasting works, but we persevere. We press on, and we continue to talk about the Brooklyn Nets and what they've accomplished so far this season. One other thing that I will take away from the Pelicans game, even though they weren't a full-strength roster, I did see a little bit of similarity in roster construction. There's a lot of long, lanky kind of bodies for the New Orleans team. Now, it would have looked different if you had Zion out there because he's a bowling ball with legs. But it was I saw a similar style, especially in Brendan Ingram, who has then that athleticism that is pretty rare for a guy of that length and size, that I found interesting just watching that game and saying, oh, well, you can match up against a team like this pretty well too, because now your versatility defensively, your athleticism pays off in a different way because there's not a lot of matchups physically that the Nets were going to lose in that game.
Yeah, this has been a Sean Marks thing for a while, right? It's like have some interchangeable 3s and 4s, kind of always a little bit undersized, probably definitely at the 5, been undersized for a while, still are this season with no Daron Sharp and just running Simmons at the 5 at times, running DFS at the 5, but even be able to slotting in Zaire Williams in this role, who has continued to look pretty good, even though the shooting is probably regressing back a little bit to why Memphis left him or was willing to get rid of him. But when they're bringing in Zaire Williams, when they have Jalen Wilson, when they have Noah Clowney coming in, like that does give them a decent amount of defensive versatility, especially around switching. And that's another reason I think they're going to be able to, stay in a lot of these games, besides just the fight. The fact that they have a bunch of, seemingly interchangeable parts around, again, like I would put it like the 3 and 4, just means that they're just that's an okay way to have structurally your NBA team built, just because that's just going to give you a higher floor. You're going to be able to defend more players. You're going to be able to switch better. You're going to be able to hopefully shoot some threes. Yeah, they lack a lot on the, in on ball creation. And they played a lineup this game with, it was like Simmons plus Claxton plus Zaire. I mean, it was how is this going to work offensively lineup for sure. And so sometimes you're going to see that. But overall, it's also another reason why they're able to stay in some of this stuff, because it is a bunch of interchangeable parts, right? Yeah. And I think like there are times where that is an okay strategy, with the understanding that it's like, not a championship level team or anything like that. But this is just kind of where they are in terms of roster build.
Yeah, it's, this is the best version of what we're able to comprise right now, based on the roster we have, based on the agenda we had this season and everything else. And it's a game, by the way, too, that they ended up having every single starter scored in double digits. Plus, you had Wilson and Clowney come off the bench scoring in double digits as well. So, we talked about in the offseason, will there be double-digit scores? Now, on the season overall, that looks a little bit different. Obviously, Dennis Schroeder has been incredibly important in the backcourt along with Cam Thomas. But a game like this, where you actually spread it out really healthy, right? Cam Thomas only takes 10 shots. You also have Johnson taking 10. 2 more players in the starting lineup, and Claxton and Schroeder, who take 9 shots apiece. So when you spread it out like that and actually have the 2 guys that came off the bench take the tied for second and most shots in Noah Clowney, who we'll talk about here in a minute, that just shows the ability to kind of have a little bit of balance. And from a coaching staff perspective, walk into a game and say, listen, like, it's not always going to be the version of things where Cam Thomas has to take 25 shots a night. We know there's going to be plenty of games where that does happen, but you need to be able to look at the opponent, see that they're missing a couple of key players, and say, hey, guess what? Solid team effort tonight probably gets us down to the wire and puts us in a position to win a basketball game. Coming up here in a second, I said his name. He came off the bench. Noah Clowney. What can we take away from that performance from him as he continues to build off of the end of last season? We'll do that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. No better time to get in on the NFL and NBA action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you bet $5. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and the NBA all in one place. Talking about bets that win right this season. If you just bet on the Nets, just bet on the Nets with whatever line it was over the course of this season, 9-2 against the spread. 9-2 against the spread, tied for best in the league. Another chance of doing that over here on FanDuel with the Nets plus 8.5 at home against the Celtics, who they just took to overtime the other night. Again, if you've been sleeping on the Nets in terms of the FanDuel stuff, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. They've been as good as you can be. Are they winning all the games? No, but the only thing that matters against the spread. Go over to FanDuel.com to join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about not only the upcoming match tonight, revenge game potentially now at home against the Boston Celtics, played them very well going back to last Friday and came up on the losing end. When they take on the Pelicans, they get the win. Before we talk Noah Clowney coming off the bench, because I think there's some nice things to think about long-term over the season with Zaire Williams and Noah Clowney and maybe some veterans moving on. This was a game for Cam Thomas where, hey, listen, ultra efficient, not high volume, Doug, but 6 of 10, 4 of 5 from deep, clutch bucket late, came away with 7 rebounds and a couple of assists. What is your takeaway on Cam Thomas' 17-point performance when he is not the leading shot taker on this team, and actually behind Zaire, behind Noah Clowney, and even with Wilson and Cam Johnson as well?
It was actually just that, right? It was that and I should have said at the beginning when I was talking about the sort of the interchangeable parts, or just the, sort of maybe the smoothing out of the roster, if Cam Thomas can take 10 shots and the team can win, I mean, that's also a very, very good sign, right? This was a very even distribution of usage throughout the team. You said Zaire with 12, Cam Johnson had 10, Thomas had 10, Jalen Wilson had 10, Clowney had 13, 2 guys in Claxton and Schroeder with 9. Like, that's that's really, really spread out for a bunch of guys. And you're really not going to see that every single night. But the fact that they were able to do that and maintain sort of like this offensive balance, it helps when you shoot 45% from three too. And maybe that's just the key. But the part where it is a balanced approach rather than just Cam getting up 24 shots or 25 shots, that is also a good sign for the team too, because that should, in theory, be a slightly harder to defend also. You have to knock down your threes. You have to make all the free throws, which they basically did, 16 for 19 from the line. But it's going to be rare where you see Cam Thomas get up 10 shots and the team wins, I think, right? Just based on usually how the rest of the team sort of functions on the offensive end, which is to say, again, they don't have a ton of these guys, but they're running a system offense. They're running a lot of movement. There's tons of screens. There's opportunities for these guys to attack closeouts. And there is opportunity to get up good looking, like good 3-point looks. And so it's a testament sort of the team where it's like, oh, Cam Thomas took 10 shots. You'd be like, they probably lost, right? Well, one, you probably just felt they got blown out.
Right? Not long. I got absolutely throttled by whoever they played.
And like he only took 10 shots because he only played like 23 minutes because they lost by 30 or something like that. Right. Like that's what you probably how you would think about that. Yeah. So it's just a nice set of circumstances for that to be the case.
And he also was the leader in terms of plus minus, a +9 in this game too. So you say 33 minutes and efficient. Now, will that work night over night? Probably not. And the one thing that I think too, that Cam Thomas definitely falls in this category. We often use Dame Lillard as one of the examples, but any of these guys that are elite offensive talents and also high volume producers, I think that there are some times when the shot selection, it varies, right? Quality shot selection on this possession, on the next possession, and then possessions 33 through, 46. Sometimes I come down there, little heat check. Sometimes I come down and I think maybe me time, I go for it. And by the end of the game, even if the percentages are a little bit lower, you still look back and say, yeah, but that's why you take 20 plus shots if you're these players, because you're a 30 plus point scorer, because you can hit those clutch buckets when it matters. If there are occasions when Cam Thomas can rein himself in, or when the team is reining in from a process standpoint, and he can still put up efficient numbers, I wonder how telling this could be for him. Like, we keep doing these check-ins on players, what the coaching staff is asking of them, and if they are seeing it and checking it off. It's impressive for me. This is a little bit of a backhanded compliment that Cam Thomas could play 33 minutes and only get up 10 shots, because it does require you to make the pass. And even though it's only a couple of assists in this game, I think if you look back at the tape, you'd say, well, he's hockey assist on a few of them, right? You make the first pass, it leads to the second pass, that leads to the open look, that leads to the easy bucket. So this is a little good growth sample for Cam Thomas. I don't want it every night. Most nights I want him taking a ton of shots, but good that he could do it efficiently and just be one of the cogs as opposed to the leading and heavily dependent on cog to win this game.
Yeah, yeah, totally agreed. And it's always more fun to watch a balanced approach offense too, just because but other guys are just more involved. Like there's just less standing around. It looks more fluid. Everything about it is better. And then you get guys like Clowney coming off the bench, 20 minutes. I thought he might get the start here. So it was interesting for Zaire Williams to get the start. I'm still not exactly sure where they see Clowney. Like the minutes haven't been outrageous this year. Again, not a huge deal, still so young. And I think, overall we're fine with sort of how things are progressing. Again, like I'm only saying that because when I was just, predicting it beforehand, I was like, oh, once we hear DFS is out, I'm thinking, oh, it's probably going to be Clowney here. So interesting to be Zaire. He was able to raise his 3-point shooting percentage in one game from like 26% to 33% just on the volume that he had in the Pelicans game, right? Came in at 26, goes 5 for 10 for 3, and all of a sudden he's 33% on the season. It's just funny how these, like, the percentages can change really, really quickly when the sample size is still pretty small. Obviously last year he shot 36% from 3, he's still 35% for his career, still projects to be kind of, I think there's like room for growth too, still in terms of like getting this up to like 37, maybe 38%. And then if that's the case, you're just totally won, right? Because you already know he can do it defensively. You already know he's already starting to attack closeouts himself with just putting the ball on the deck and trying to get to the rim at times. I still think there's like massive growth for him. I think we have not even, I don't think we've even seen a sliver of like what the upside potential is here. And I think there's still just the training wheels are still kind of on when it comes to the minutes. And I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
No, we talked about this in the offseason minutes when we did our rundowns, and I was a little more pushing for Clowney to be close to, if not maybe even in the starting lineup. I don't know. Don't go back and watch that episode. Who knows for sure? But I wanted him to be playing bigger minutes. But you mentioned it there. This is actually a case where now, 11 games through the season, I go, yeah, I'm fine with it. Zaire Williams gets to start over him. I'm okay with that because it looks like there's a developmental plan for Clowney, and it's just not going to be one of these things where he's spiking, playing 30 minutes a night or playing back-to-back games where it's heavily minuted. Now, one thing you can note about, maybe check this out over with our friends on FanDuel, when Noah Clowney plays 20-plus minutes, that's undefeated this season. 2-0, going back to the game against Milwaukee, 115-102, when he played 21 minutes. Of course, he only shot 4 of 13 from the field in that game, but was 3 of 8 from beyond the arc, just like he was 5 of 10 from deep in this game against the Pelicans as well. The volume there to me is the biggest thing that jumps out. He's only done that one other time. I mentioned there are eight shot attempts going back to that Bucks game, never more than 5, only took 2 looks in 15, 17, and 14 minutes over the last 3 games in the start of November. But if he can in any way start to produce, not at 50%, we all get that, but if he can produce at a 35+% consistently night over night, something getting towards 4 attempts if he's playing 20 to 25 minutes, then you see the path when it comes to moving on from Dorian Finney-Smith at some point, because you need to have a guy that's in the wings ready to do that. We think Zaire Williams can do some of that. We think defensively he offers value. But if he regresses to the mean and to his career in terms of his three-point shooting, okay, there's going to be some gaps to fill in there. So that's the most encouraging thing I took away from it, is that you got a big sample when his role was slightly expanded, where Clowney said, great, you're going to put me in the position to take the outside looks. I'm going to pull the trigger on him every single time, and you get a lot of them going through, which is a great sign for him.
And they're not all just like sitting in the corner threes either. These are above the break threes.
No.
A couple of them, a couple of them are from longer distance. And and he's been willing to take them. I think a lot of times with guys like this early on in their careers, just even the willingness to take it is a huge thing, because they just either don't want to, or they miss a couple, and then they just, have a long memory about misses. You have to have a short memory around misses in the NBA for sure. Like, especially if you're just going to be a 3-point shooter, because again, like when 35 to 38% is good, that's just more misses than makes. That's not an easy thing. That's the math is pretty clear there, but the math still wins at those percentages, especially for a guy with his makeup. So really, really encouraging. Again, I'm not sure. If it's going to be 20 minutes a game, it's 20 minutes a game. I think that's fine with the way things are. There's no reason to overextend it. Put him in good spots. Give him the green light when he has it, and let's see if they can just get these percentages up. Because again, if those percentages are going to be high 30s. I think it's already a win on Clowney for sure. And I think if he gets in the high 30s with his rest of his skill set, it's an absolute, home run to mix metaphors. I could have said slam dunk, but I said home run instead, because we just, it's better to just mix sports. All right. We got a little more to talk about, including taking the L on a Ben Simmons episode from me personally, where just absolutely shoves it down my throat. One day later with this performance, and we'll get into that.
It's just good to know that he's a fan of the podcast, and we'll learn more about that here in just.
You're welcome, everybody. We did it. Before we get to that, I'll tell you about our friends over at Mint Mobile. Look, with big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about those gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans with their jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages. We've all been there. We think we're signing up for one thing. All of a sudden, that first bill comes, and you're like, what happens here? Why is it X more than I even thought I was going to pay? Mint Mobile is here to rescue with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Check. To get this new customer offer and your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Disclaimer, $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
All right, so as we tie a bow on today's Locked On Nets episode, going to get to our picks for game night in Brooklyn. The Nets will be hosting those Boston Celtics, and the question will become for the both of us, was that a sample up in Boston of what could be accomplished? Can they get that win, or does a familiarity maybe breed a little bit more difficulty for them? But before we do that, Doug, Gotta talk about our friend Ben Simmons. It's not often that we do this coming out of games with him. It's not often that we find ourselves, not because we have anything against Ben Simmons, but on the defending him side of the ledger when it comes to how he's performed as a Brooklyn Net and just the state of his game. 22 minutes off the bench, 3 of 5, 5 attempts, Doug, which if you played 30 minutes, that's something interesting to think about. Gave you 5 rebounds, but then also 12 assists, 10 of which came in the first half in this one, 2 steals, and was the second best plus minus behind only Cam Thomas at +8 in this game. 6 points chipped in as well. You take as much time as you need, Doug. I think the floor is yours. As lengthy as an apology as you want to provide for Ben when he listens to the show.
I mean, it was hilarious because we just, again, like dumped on him the previous episode about how it just wasn't going to happen and blah, 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 and all the things he doesn't do. I'm actually still not too far away from that original take. Like one game is not going to sway it on me. The part where he just has like the +8 and just is dishing, like just, has 45 assists, whatever, in 6 minutes or whatever it was. Like he just, every single thing turned into an assist. The game still wasn't that different like than what he does. It was just all the passes turned into makes. Again, that's fine. Like 12 assists in 22 minutes is a ton. So I'm not really detracting. I'm also just saying that I don't think I've shifted my overall opinion of this situation all that much. Just still
this guy's putting up 45 assists though. If he, 25 assists if he plays a full 48. So you got to take that into account when we're talking about stats.
The assists are always going to be there because he doesn't shoot. The assists are always going to be there. I'll say this every time. He has elite vision. No one is contesting that. He has absolutely elite vision and more willingness than most other NBA players to make the pass, right? Because he just wants to pass before he shoots. We see it. And it's going to sound like it's so funny because he's +8 with 12 assists. And yes, this was like a nice game by him. He still did a lot of the boneheady stuff that he does a lot of times, like passing off when he should be driving to the basket. Did like a dump off pass to Claxton in transition that just turned into an easy turnover because he shouldn't be passing right there. He just defaults to it too much. And sometimes that's going to mean 12 assists a game because he passes every time he gets the ball, every possession, and he passes every time he gets the ball. There are going to be games where all those passes turn into makes and they win. Great. Yeah. That's fine. The Nets can live with it. It's they're not trying to win playoff series here. If you want him to turn the corner, he has to shoot more. He didn't do that this game. A lot of the stuff is the same as before. It just looks bad compared to like what we said, because I referenced specifically plus minus in my takedown of him the podcast before, and he just came out and was just awesome on the plus minus thing. So it's mostly that we're just going to be in the same place here until he's taking 10 shots a game, which he's never going to do. Until he's taking 10 shots a game, my opinion won't really change. And it was nice to see all the times that he found guys open, they made their shots, and that's going to have a high floor enough when everything is going down. But overall, on a macro level, I'm not pivoting off anything I said last time.
No, of course not. And the way that I will frame it for myself is good. I'm glad that he's putting together a solid game, right? When we talk about all the things that we like that this team has been doing so far this year, how competitive they've been. They've been in every game, basically. They have opportunities to win them. I'm glad that in the game that they won, Ben Simmons was a contributor to it, as opposed to what has been fairly standard, as you say, go and look at the score, look at the plus minus and saying, I can put far more in the detracting from team success category for Ben Simmons than into the contributing to it. So that from that standpoint, great game for him. To your point, now what? Do you continue to expand and build on that? The beauty of this is, unlike in years past, I mean, we mentioned the interview the other day. He said it is what it is, but as far as being taken from the starting unit into the bench, but he seemed okay with it. And I think there's some level of understanding that you're trying to make a balanced roster. If the team is winning basketball games, then it's also easier to kind of take that lump. You played 22 minutes. If you're going to be a bench player and we just stop worrying about the dollars because it doesn't matter anymore on the contract, great. 22 minutes from a player coming off the bench that can dish out a ton of assists, give you a couple of points, and do some really solid things defensively and be one of those key cogs in frustrating the opposition on that end of the floor. Awesome. That's fine. The part where I think you and I reignite our frustration is when you're insistent on having him in the starting lineup, when you're insistent on trying to force combinations that don't make sense functionally from a basketball standpoint. So this is actually, I also think, the best thing for Ben Simmons at this point, because there's no pressure. You're coming off the bench, you're leading this unit, you're doing your thing, and hopefully you build a little bit up here. 5 shots in 22 minutes. Is that 7 over 30? If you played more, maybe. It still comes down to not even the number of shots at this point as well. It's also, you mentioned that drop-off pass when you're in transition and leads to a sloppy turnover. It just has to be. If the right play is going at the basket and taking the foul and going to the line, you draw the foul, you go to the line. Because in these 22 minutes, guess what? Did not attempt any free throws. So, and this isn't nitpicking at Ben Simmons. It's just continuing to give the full context. One good stat category for him does not always tell you the story of his game. More often than not, it doesn't tell you the full story of how he impacted a game.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'll start shifting my opinion. And good job by you by mentioning we don't care about the dollars anymore, which we clearly don't. I mean, that mattered a long time when the Nets were hamstrung around roster building around a guy that was basically getting paid a max salary that wasn't performing like that. That's a killer for teams that are actually trying. Teams that aren't trying as much, that just doesn't matter as much. We all clearly know that he's not anywhere close to the actual contract. It'd be fascinating to see what happens in the offseason with him. We'll see how it goes the rest of the year. I hope we continue to get him going to the basket and taking more shots. I think the Nets will be a more fun team to watch when that's happening, or they'll just be more versatile. But I'm just not holding out any hope. All right, let's talk real quick. Celtics, Celtics coming into the Nets. Celtics at -8.5. So your Nets are getting 8.5 points here. Look again. If you just took if you took the Nets every game with the and the points, you are doing really, really well here. Where do you stand on this game against the Celtics? They just took them to overtime, buddy, in Boston. Don't forget, it was almost a W up there in Boston. Now they're getting 8.5.
I have to live by, I think I said at the time, there's a world where with the way they were playing, I definitely took the points the first time around. There's no reason. Oh, no, I think I laid the points last time. We both took a bit of on the chin on that one. But this one's easier to take the points at home. I thought if they were at home, I'd like the spread. They were even bigger dogs up in Boston. I'll still take the 8.5 and just play the odds. As Doug would tell you, play the percentages. When you take the points against the spread, the Nets typically reward you. So I think the Nets get it done here at home and cover the spread. I'll stop short of saying outright win and getting back to 500 basketball.
I just can't bet. I just can't not do it anymore. It's just it's every game. Every game every game with them in the points. You're good to go. So I'm just gonna take the Nets. I might just you're gonna if we're gonna have to make this segment any different, it's gonna have to be you that goes the other way. I'm telling you right now. I'm drawing my line.
Well, now that I've established like a three point lead, quote unquote, in the host battle early in the season. So now I just feel like I should agree with you every single game, no matter what. And then we'll just play this thing out and I'll champion myself at the end of the year, which is
that's just good podcasting. That's just good podcasting. Two hosts just agree with each other about everything. This is it's like talk radio, but the exact opposite. Okay. We are going to get out of here. Much appreciated everyone rocking with us through the season. Make sure that you go over to We Got Nets. You can still grab that four stories, and then in 4 days. That's the easy one. Also, sign up for the Locked On Nets newsletter. Adam's cranking those out every single day, bringing you stuff that's going on in the Nets season. You're going to want to get that, so grab the Locked On Nets newsletter.
Perseverance is failing 19 times and succeeding the 20th, and that, my friends, is Sound of the Hills, Julie Andrews.
One of the all-time great poets. So back in tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.